So my topic is creating your first declarative agent for Microsoft 365 Copilot, and I'm going to show how to do that in using Teams Toolkit and potentially not requiring a Copilot license. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through the demo. Now, this demo is actually part of Copilot Developer Camp, which, if you're not aware, is a virtual workshop with videos and hands-on labs for building Copilot agents. The URL is there. And I'll show you the site right now. So everything is here. We've got a whole video briefing for you and hands-on labs in 3 different tracks. Extend, which is building declarative agents with Teams Toolkit. Build your own agent, where you write your own agent with any AI engine that you want. And then there's news, thanks to my new teammate, Paolo. We have Maker Labs, including Copilot Studio and the Agent Builder and SharePoint. So lots of cool things. So the question on your mind might be, how do I know which one to do? It's kind of a complicated decision tree. Well, here's the decision tree, and Paolo just made a cool video, which I'll talk about in a second, that helps you navigate this. The first question is, do you want to do Maker or Code? And if you go down the code path and you want to use the Microsoft 365 built-in artificial intelligence, then that's what I'm going to show today. You want to build a declarative agent in that case. So Paulo has just walked through all 23 labs in just 14 minutes. He doesn't show them every single step, but he shows what is the result and explains the difference, explains the principles. It's a great video. I highly recommend checking that out. So today I'm going to demo the first 2 labs on what we call the extend path. We're extending the Copilot that's built into M365. So I'm just going to literally do it right here, demonstrate it. These are the 2 labs that I'm going to show. And then over the coming weeks, we'll be showing labs from all these different tracks so you can actually see what it's like. And this is something that, of course, you can do at home. So absolutely try it. So the first step I need to do is I need to configure Teams upload policy. And this is so that Teams Toolkit can actually upload your agent programmatically just by pushing F5. So it's really nice. But in order for that to work, you have to go into Teams admin, or maybe you have to bake cookies for your admin and get them to do it for you. And so to do that, you go into Teams apps, set up policies, and you need to click a policy that your user is part of. So I'll just use the global org-wide, and that's the setting right there, is upload custom apps. Now, if it's already set, you're good to go. If it's not set, don't forget to hit save, and it can take up to 24 hours to take effect, although usually it's only a couple of hours. So that's the first step. I'll check that one off. And let's come down here, and the next thing I need to do is set up my development machine with Teams Toolkit and all the other prerequisites. So let's actually do that. Now I'm going to do this on Windows, but everything here also works on Mac OS. So Visual Studio Code, you might already have it if you're doing regular coding types of tasks. It's extremely popular, but I'll just show how easy it is. You just download this thing, and I'm going to set this thing up kind of using the defaults, except I love the little open with code shortcut, so I'll turn that on so that on Windows you can right-click and have it open a folder directly or file directly in Visual Studio Code. So, okay, we'll go ahead and launch that, and there we go. So simple enough. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of go back to the instructions and see what's next. And so we did that one. And the next thing is to install Node.js. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to do it the way I prefer and recommend, which is I'm going to use something called Node Version Manager. There's a different NVM depending on if you're Windows, Mac, or Linux. So you want to pick the one for your operating system. And what this does is you'll find, if you're a developer, that different development scenarios require different versions of Node.js. So maybe SharePoint requires one version and Teams Toolkit might require another. So what NVM allows you to do is pivot right on your computer without reinstalling from one version of Node to another. So it's great, but the only thing is you have to install it up front before you put Node on your machine. So now I'm going to NVM list. I have no installations of Node. So for the labs, I need version 20. So it's going to go, and it turns out the latest version 20, the subversion is 20.18.3. So now it's installed that for me, but I'm not yet set up to use it. So I'm going to say nvm use 20.18.3, and that will go ahead and install. And now I can check the version, and yep, it's there, it's working, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so now I'm going to install Teams Toolkit, which is the final prerequisite for these labs. And this is extremely easy. It's inside of Visual Studio Code. All I have to do is type Teams, and there it is right on the list. Click the install button, wait a moment, and it will install. And we get a nice little walkthrough and explanation for that. So now let's create the project. So I'll go in and create a new app. I want an agent. I want a declarative agent. I don't want a plugin in this case. We'll get to that in the next segment, which will be in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to make the geolocator game. Perhaps you've seen this demo before, although I think this is a little bit of a deeper dive than we've done in the past. So there's what it created. And I'll trust the authors, and I get a whole README, which I'm gonna, developers don't really read the directions, right? So I'm gonna skip that and just go and sign in. Now I'm playing the part of Amber here, who is a fictitious user in my developer tenant. And you can see that Teams Toolkit has signed me in so that it now has permission to install the app. And it has checked to make sure that that custom app upload is enabled. That's the one that I showed you a moment ago. It's also checked that Copilot access is enabled. So this one is interesting because it's kind of a moving target. So this is checking to see if I have a Copilot license for M365. The first part of this lab doesn't actually require the Copilot license anymore because they now have Copilot for all. So this will probably give you an error message if you don't have the Copilot license, but don't be scared. It still will, the first part of this will work. The SharePoint integration will not work. Depending on if you have that Copilot license. I do have it, so I'm going to see that it is enabled right here. So now let's go ahead and see what code it has generated. The first thing I'm going to look is the app package. I'm going to look at the manifest. So this is the same manifest that is used in all Teams and M365 applications, not SharePoint, but all of the M365 ones. And you can put tabs and bots and all kinds of stuff in here. What I've got is a Copilot agent. It's a declarative agent, and it's inside of this JSON file. So this whole thing is really just writing JSON, and Teams Toolkit did all the heavy lifting for us, and then writing in natural language. So the instructions are in this instructions.txt. And I'm going to go ahead, and it gave me some very simple text, but I'm going to replace that with some text from the lab. And it's defined a game, a fairly complex game on geolocation, so it's guessing locations. And it's got scoring rules and all kinds of details, but I didn't have to write anything special. It's just, actually, Rabia Williams wrote this lab, and Aicha Bosch also designed the game. So anyway, it's very simple. It's just plain English in this case, although you could use another supported language. And then I'm going to add the conversation starters. These are the prompts that it suggests, that Copilot suggests at the beginning of a conversation. So I need to remember to save my instruction file. And now, normally I would click F5 debugger, but in this case, there's nothing on the on my local machine to debug. So I'm just going to provision it, which will compile the package files together and upload them into Microsoft 365. So now let me launch my browser, and I could do this manually, but there's a shortcut here. If I click Run and Debug, it's going to bring up the Copilot in a local browser. And I can see here there's my geolocator game, and I will go ahead and take sort of the default and get the first clue. And it's a city in the continent of Europe and known for a maritime climate. I'm going to guess that it's probably London. I always guess London. I don't know, I just think of it. But there, it's not it. Historic architecture, a well-known cathedral. Must be Paris, right? Notre Dame is such a beautiful cathedral. Oh, there's a lot of cathedrals in Europe. I guess I had it wrong. Birthplace of the Renaissance. I think I have to look that one up, but I think it's Florence. And yes, it's correct. Okay, that's great. So I'm trying to go as fast as I can here because of time, but the special challenges that it's suggesting are based on SharePoint content. So let's go back to the lab and take care of that, shall we? So I'll close this down, and first thing I have to do is upload the files into SharePoint. So I'm going to download the files and open that up, and I have to unzip them because I get a zip archive when I do that. Obviously, this is different on different operating systems. There's the files. And now what I need to do is to create a SharePoint site. Now, I really wanted to do a SharePoint demo today, so I had to include this because my roots are kind of in SharePoint, if any of you have known me for a long time. And so I'm going to create a team site, a standard team, and just use that standard template. And I'm going to call it, the name inside of the lab is different, but I already had one of those, so I'm calling it something different. It won't actually create a site with a dash in it, even though I don't get an error there, so I had to fix that and get rid of that. And then I need to make this public so that all the users of my app can read the files, because it will enforce whatever security is on the site. And now here's my site, and I'll just go ahead and upload these files. So my documents, and yep, I don't really need to learn something about agents. We're building one already. So let me pop in here, grab the files, and upload both of them. And now that's done. So what I need to do is tell Copilot about these files. So I'm going to copy the URL into my clipboard and go back to the declarative agent files. And actually, I'm going to put this in an environment variable. Now, I could hard code this, but it's nice to put it inside of an environment variable. So if you have more than one deployment from here, you can set up different environments to deploy to different places. And I'd like this to adapt to all of the different environments. So there it is. I'm just saying, hey, you have the capability of querying this SharePoint site. And as a reminder, this does require the Copilot license because it uses the semantic index, which is expensive for us to host. So we require the license. Now I'm going to bump the version number so that it will ensure that when I redeploy this, that it's going to overwrite the previous one, and I'll go back and reprovision. Almost there. So that provisions, and I'll come back here and go to this time I'm just going to navigate directly to Copilot, and let's go ahead and see if that works. So geolocator game, I'm going to try the challenge here and see what happens. And it's asking for the traveler's diary, which was one of those PDF files. And the instructions had some details about that, but oh, it doesn't work. Oh no. And the reason is, and as the previous presenter showed, you have to wait for the files to be indexed. And we don't have a fancy little display for that. So you can use search or something to see if they've hit the index or not. But in any case, after a few moments, it works perfectly, and it can ask me a question about an ancient map. The crossroads of two continents, that's almost always Istanbul. So I'm going to try Istanbul because I know it's very unique geographically, and it also is important to spell Istanbul correctly, which is a bit of a challenge for me. And I'm correct, yay! So that's it. In the coming weeks, we're going to have more demos from the Copilot Developer Camp, and if you want to try this hands-on, here is the URL and the URL of Paulo's video, which shows all of the lab results and explains all the different paths through Copilot Camp. So I hope to see you in Copilot Camp.